All praises to Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham, HaKadosh. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and blessings to the Aquam and Aquath who are faithfully studying and following this word and this truth and pushing the word out, regardless of anybody who listens or not. If they hear or forbear, it's not our business. Our business is to push this word. I'm going to get into 1 Maccabees 3. Then son Judas, called Maccabeus, rose up in his stead, and all his brethren helped him, and so did all they that held with his father, and they fought with cheerfulness of the battle of Israel. So he gat his people great honour, and put on a breastplate as a giant, and girt his warlike harness about him. And he made battles, protecting the host with his sword. And his axe he was like a lion, and like a lion's whelp roaring for his prey. So whelp, I think, is a young lion or a teenage lion. It's kind of almost the height of their athletic ability. For he pursued the wicked and sought them out, and burnt up those that vexed his people. Wherefore the wicked shrunk for fear of him, and all the workers of iniquity were troubled because salvation prospered in his hand. He grieved also many kings, and made Jacob glad with his axe, and his memorial is blessed forever, Jacob being the people. Moreover, he went through the cities of Judah, destroying the ungodly out of them, and turning away the wrath from Israel, so that he was renowned unto the utmost part of the earth, and he received unto him such as were ready to perish. Then Apollonius gathered the Gentiles together and the great host out of Samaria to fight against Israel. And I think Apollo's the god of war. So this Roman was named after the god of war. Okay, Google, what's Apollo the god of?
Here you go.
I can't quite see it. Okay, Google, tell me about the Apollo god.
Here you go.
It's not quite saying it. I'll read it in a minute. Which thing, when Judas perceived, he went forth to meet him, and so he smote him and slew him. Many also fell down slain, but the rest fled. Wherefore Judas took their spoils, and Apollonius his sword also, and therewith he fought all his life long. Now, so this sounds like it's just he was just going through the cities, rooting out the Gentiles, which will be some of them Israelite, most of them probably Israelites as well, and just getting people. And that's why he's saying he's turning away the wrath of Israel, because he's stopping God from punishing all these people, man, to have broken the covenant. Now, when Seron, the prince of the army of Syria, heard say that Judas had gathered unto him a multitude in the company of the faithful to go out with him to war, he said, I will get me a name and honour in the kingdom, for I will go to fight with Judas and them that are with him, who despise the king's commandment. So he made ready to go up, and they went with him a mighty host of ungodly to help him, to be avenged of the children of Israel. And when he came near the going up of Beth Horon, Judas went forth to meet him with a small company, who, when they saw the host coming to meet them, said unto Judas, How shall we be able, being so few, to fight against so great a multitude, so strong, seeing we are already too faint with fasting all this day? So as it may be that they'd gone, you don't really fast on the Sabbath, so it'd be interesting to see why they were fasting at that time. But maybe they were just happened to be fasting. Unto whom Judas answered, It is no hard matter for many to be shut up in the hands of a few, and with the God of heaven it is all one, to deliver with a great multitude or a small company. So basically he's saying it's not a hard thing for a few people to slaughter a great number, and especially with the God of heaven. It makes no difference. It doesn't matter whether it's 2 people or 10,000, If God's decided that's the way the battle's going to go, that's the way the battle's going to go. For the victory of the battle standeth not in the multitude of the host, but in the strength that cometh from strength cometh from heaven. They come against us in much pride and iniquity, to destroy us and our wives and children, and to spoil us. But we fight for our lives and our laws. So they're coming. They've got like spiritual backing from the Most High, but also they're kind of on the righteous side, man. They're fighting for decency. They're fighting for that which is right, rather than a person who fighting on behalf of the king who's twisted commandments nobody wants to follow. So they've kind of got the moral high ground, if you like, as well. Now, as soon as he'd left off speaking, I know. Wherefore the Lord himself will overthrow them before our face. And as for you, be ye not afraid of them. Now, as soon as he had left off speaking, he leapt suddenly upon them, and so Sihon and his host was overthrown before him. And they pursued them from the going down of Beth Horon unto the plain where were slain about 800 men of them, and the residue fled into the land of the Philistines. Then began the fear of Judas and his brethren, and an exceeding great dread to fall upon the nations round about them. So everybody's seeing him just taking out all these people, and they're starting to get worried. Insomuch as his fame came unto the king, and all nations talked of the battles of Judas. Now when King Antiochus heard these things, he was full of indignation, wherefore he sent and gathered together all the forces of his realm, even a very strong army. He opened also his treasure, and gave his soldiers pay for a year, commanding them to be ready whensoever he should need them. Nevertheless, when he saw that the money of his treasures failed, and that the tributes of the country were small because of the dissension and the plague which he had brought upon the land in taking away the laws which had been of old time. So his money was small because people weren't obeying him to go to. He was trying to raise an army, but he didn't have much in his coffers because there's all this plague and all this, and people were not obeying him because of all this plague that he'd brought from his dirty behavior, basically, and moving the laws away from Israel. He's brought all this curses upon people. He feared that he should not be able to bear the charges any longer, nor to have such gifts to give so liberally as he did before, for he had abounded above the kings that were about before him. Wherefore, being greatly perplexed in his mind, he determined to go to Persia, there to take the tributes to the countries, and to gather much money. So he left Lysias, a nobleman, and one of the blood royal, to oversee the affairs from the king from the river Euphrates unto the borders of Egypt, and to bring his son Antiochus until he came again. Moreover, he delivered unto him half of his forces and the elephants, and gave him charge of all things that he would have done, and also concerning them that dwelt in Judah and Jerusalem, to wit, that he should send an army against them to destroy and root out the strength of Israel and the remnant of Jerusalem, and to take away the memorial from that place, and that he should place strangers in all their quarters and divide their land by lot. So the king took half of the forces that remained and departed from Antioch, his royal city, which is named after himself, which is also in the scriptures. They call names after themselves, name places after themselves, and cover the faces of the judges and things like that. The 140 will seek to put people in their likeness and change the ancient landmarks. 147th year, having passed the river Euphrates, he went through the high countries. Then Lysias chose Ptolemy, son of Doremes, Nicanor, and Georgius, mighty men of the king's friends, and with them he sent forth 40,000 footmen and 7,000 horsemen to go into the land of Judea and destroy it, as the king commanded. So they went forth with all their power and came and pitched by Emmaus in the plain country. And the merchants of the country, hearing the fame of them, took silver and gold very much with servants, and came into the camp to buy the children of Israel for slaves. A power also of Syria and of the land of Philistines joined themselves unto them. So the merchants were like hoping to buy slaves, because they're thinking after this battle has occurred, they'll all be coming into slavery. So they're all getting ready to, sell them off after they had been captured after the battle. Um, Now, when Judas and his brethren saw that the miseries were multiplied, and that forces did encamp themselves in their borders, for they knew how the king had given commandment to destroy the people and utterly abolish them, they said one to another, "Let us restore the decayed fortune of our people, and let us fight for our people and the sanctuary." Then was the congregation gathered together that might be ready for the battle, and that they might pray and ask for mercy and compassion. Now Jerusalem lay void as the wilderness. There was none of her children that went in or out. The sanctuary was trodden down, and the aliens kept the stronghold. The heathen had their habitation in that place, and joy was taken from Jacob, and the pipe with the harp ceased. Wherefore the Israelites assembled themselves together and came to Maspha, over against Jerusalem. For in Mashpah was the place where they prayed aforetime in Israel. Then they fasted that day, and put on sackcloth, and cast ashes on their heads, and rent their clothes, and laid upon the open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likenesses of their images, which I just said before. So they brought also the priests' garments and their first fruits and the tithes and the Nazarites they stirred up who had accomplished their days. So all the Nazarites who had completed their vow of being a Nazarite, who had not broken it. Then cried they with a loud voice towards heaven, saying, "What shall we do with these, and whither shall we carry them away? For thy sanctuary is trodden down and profaned, and thy priests are in heaviness and brought low. And lo, the heathen are assembled together against us to destroy what things they imagine against us, thou knowest. How shall we be able to stand up against them, except thou, O God, be our help?" Then sounded they with trumpet and cried with a loud voice. So they're just crying out to the Lord now. And after this, Judas ordained captains over the people, even captains over thousands and over hundreds and over fifties and over tens. This is going to be a big battle, man. This is it. This is showtime. This is like make or break. You know, they're already getting people, the merchants are already smelling blood, getting ready to sell all the people that are captured, all the wives and children as slaves. Uh, but as but as such, as we're building houses or betrothed wives or planting vineyards or were fearful, those he commanded that they should return every man to his own house according to the law. So the camp removed and pitched upon the south side of Amos. And Judah said, "Arm yourselves and be valiant men, and see that ye be in readiness against the morning, that ye may fight with these nations that are assembled together against us to destroy us and our sanctuary. For it is better to die in battle than to behold the calamities of our people and our sanctuary. Nevertheless, as the will of God as is in heaven, so let him do." So, it's about to go down. Maccabees 4. Let's get it. Then took George's 5,000 footmen and 1,000 of the best horsemen, and removed out of the camp by night, to the end he might rush in unto the camp, upon the camp of the Jews, and smite them suddenly. And the men of the fortress were his guides. Now when Judas heard thereof, he himself removed, and the valiant men with him, that he might smite the king's army which was at Amos. While as yet the forces were dispersed from the camp, in the mean season came Georgius by night into the camp of Judas, and where he found no man there, he sought them in the mountains, for he said, "These fellows flee from us." But as soon as it was day, Judas shewed himself in the plain with 3,000 men, who were nevertheless had neither army nor swords to their minds. And they saw the camp of the heathen, that it was strong and well harnessed, and compassed round about with horsemen, and these were expert of war. Then said Judas to the men that were with him, "Fear ye not their multitude, neither be afraid of their assault. Remember how our fathers were delivered in the Red Sea, when Pharaoh pursued them with an army. Now, therefore, let us cry unto heaven, if peradventure the Lord will have mercy on us, and remember the covenant of our fathers, and destroy this host before our face this day, that so all the heathen may know that there is one who delivereth and saveth Israel. Then the strangers lifted up their eyes and saw them coming over against them. Wherefore they went out to the camp to battle, but that were with Judah sounded their trumpets. So they joined the battle, and the heathen, being discomfited, fled into the plain. Howbeit all the hindmost of them were slain with the sword, for they pursued them unto Gazaria, and unto the plains of Idumea and Azotus and Gemenia, so that they were slain again of them upon a 3,000 men. Then this done, Judas returned again with his host from pursuing them, and said to the people, Be not greedy of the spoil, in as much as there is a battle before us. So don't start trying to get your gold and take this woman and take this horse or whatever. Just concentrate on the battle. And Georges and his host are here with us, by us in the mountain. But stand ye now against our enemies and overcome them, and after this ye may boldly take the spoils. As Judas was speaking these words, there appeared a part of them looking out of the mountain, who, when they perceived the Jews had put their host to flight and were burning the tents, for the smoke was seen, declared what was done. When therefore they perceived these things, they were sore afraid, and seeing also the host of Judas in the plain ready to fight, they fled every one into the land of the strangers. Then Judas returned to spoil the tents, where they got much gold and silver and blue silk and purple of the sea and great riches. After this they went home and sung a song of thanksgiving and praised the Lord in heaven, because it is good, because his mercy endures forever. Thus Israel had a great deliverance that day. Yeah, so they were supposed to have really been taken out, logically, rather, I should say. But it just turned out the way the battle went, they ended up winning. Well, obviously, it was with the help of the Lord. It was the Lord who directed it and made it happen that way. Now all the strangers that had escaped came and told Lysias what happened, who, when he heard thereof, was confounded and discouraged, because neither such things as he could were done unto Israel, nor such things as the king commanded him were come to pass. So he was trying to do the things that the king was commanded and things that he wanted done, and they just couldn't get executed. The next year, therefore, following, Lysias gathered together 70,000 men, choice of men of foot, and 5,000 horsemen, that he might subdue them. So they came into Idumea and pitched their tents at Bethsura, and Judas met them with 10,000 men. So he had together 60, so that's 60,000 men and 5,000 horsemen. So 65,000 people, and Judas met them with 10,000 men. So he was like almost a seventh of the size. And when he saw the mighty army, he prayed and said, Blessed art thou, O Saviour Israel, who did quell the violence of the mighty man by the hand of thy servant David, and gave us the host, and that's David and Goliath, right? And gave us the host of strangers into the hand of Jonathan, the son of Saul, and his armor bearer. Shut up this army in the hand of thy people Israel. So shut up this army means bring the army down, and let them be confounded in their power and horsemen. Make them to be of no courage, and cause the boldness of their strength to fall away, and let them quake at their destruction. Cast them down with the sword of them that love thee, and let all those that know thy name praise thee with thanksgiving. So they joined the battle, and they were slain of the host of Lysias, about 5,000 men, even before them were slain. So before even the first Israelite was slain, 5,000 of the king's men were slain, or the heathen. Now when Lysias saw his army put to flight, and the manliness of Judah's soldiers, and how they were ready either to live or die valiantly, he went into Antiochia, and gathered together a company of strangers, having made his army greater than it was, he purposed to come again into Judea. Then said Judas and his brethren, Behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. Upon all this, all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Sion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, the altar profaned, and the gates burned up, and the shrubs growing in the courts in the forest, or in one of the mountains, yea, and the priest's chambers pulled down, they rent their clothes and made great lamentation and cast ashes upon their heads. And they fell down flat on the ground upon their faces and blew the alarm with the trumpets and cried towards heaven. Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. So he chose the priests of blameless conversation, such as he has had pleasure in the law, who cleansed the sanctuary and bear out the defiled stones into an unclean place. And when so the stones probably that had been, had pigs slaughtered on them, so they just picked them up and thrown them out into somewhere that is already unclean, to the sewers, if you like. And when they consulted what to do with the altar of the burnt offerings, which was profaned, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them, because the heathen had defiled it. Wherefore they pulled it down and laid upon the stones in the mountain in the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to shew what should be done with them. Then they took whole stones according to the law, and built a new altar according to the former, and made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple, and hallowed the courts. They made also new holy vessels, and into the temple they brought the candlestick, and the altar of burnt offerings, and the incense, and the table. And upon the altar they burnt incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlesticks they lighted, that they might give light in the temple. Furthermore, they set loaves upon the table and spread out the veils, and finished all the works which they had begun to make. Now on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is called the month of Caslu, in the 148th year, they rose up betimes in the morning, and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings which they had made. Look, at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it, even it was dedicated with songs and citharns and harps and cymbals. Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshipping and praising the God in heaven, who had given them good success. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness and sacrifices, and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise. They decked also the forecourt of the temple with crowns of gold, and with shields, and the gates and the chambers that they renewed, and hanged doors upon them. Thus was there great gladness among the people, for that the reproach of the heathen was put away. Moreover, Judas and his brethren, with the whole congregation of Israel, ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year, by space of 8 days, from the 5th to the 20th, by the space of 8 days. So it's 8 days and 7 nights, really. So every night you do, it's really a 7 candle menorah. So of 8 days, from the 5th to the 20th day of the month of Caslim, with the mirth and gladness. At that time they builded up the Mount Sion with the high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles should come and tread it down as they had before. And they set there a garrison to keep it, and fortified Bethsura to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea. Right, so with that's a bit of the Maccabees as we're in Hanukkah. Now, just say Shalom.